Hey guys, welcome back to the Matthew Bible Study. We're in chapter 9, which is appropriate for 2019. But before we go any further, first I like to say a blessing. So I just pray a blessing over everyone who hears this, everyone who would share with. I pray that 2019 would just be your most amazing year ever of spiritual growth and actual miracles and blessing in your life and in your loved ones. Amen. But let me just say that going forward, I'm going to do things a little differently this year. I'm going to keep these broadcasts to about 3 or 4 minutes long, and then I'm going to do a longer teaching for you extra milers. I know I have my extra mile people out there. A little longer one to explore the chapter in a little further depth on a new YouTube channel that I'm creating. And so in the next day or two, I'm going to drop links about the YouTube channel where you could go over there and see the longer versions. But over here on Facebook, this will be a 3 or 4 minute bite-sized morsel that you can grab and go. I hope that works. Drop me some comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. So we're in chapter 9. And as you can see, if you go back to chapter 8, Jesus is really in the thick of the ministry at this point. And he's going about, and we can see in chapter 9, he heals a paralytic, right? And then shortly thereafter, he calls Matthew, the actual writer of the book of Matthew. He calls him from being a tax collector into the ministry. And Matthew gets up and Matthew follows him, right? Then we see he heals a woman who had a medical issue that caused her to bleed for many years. And Jesus heals her. And he says to her, ma'am, your faith has made you well. So he comes back to that point and he brings that forward from chapters, actually from the Sermon on the Mount, 5, 6, 7, 8, right up to chapter 9, saying it's your faith. It's according to your faith. He makes that strong point on that. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. And then we see 2 blind men are healed. And the same thing. He says, it's according to your faith. Let it be done unto you. The mute are also healed. A mute man is brought before him and he gets a healing. And then we see Jesus's general compassion at the end of the chapter, just looking across the village, looking at the people coming and going to and fro. And it says that he just had compassion on them, but he went about healing their sicknesses and healing their diseases and dealing with all of their issues. And he said, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. And so he's looking for a few laborers like you and me, my friend. But there's one section for the purposes of this broadcast that I want to touch on. And it comes about roughly around verse 14, where the disciples of John the Baptist, who now realized the Messiah was on the scene, were now following Jesus. And they came to him and they said, hey, Jesus, why is it that the disciples of John, they fast, and the disciples of the Pharisees, which is another religious sect that was around at that time, why do they fast? But you and your disciples don't fast. And Jesus gave them this answer. He said, look, we won't fast while the bridegroom is here, meaning while Jesus is here, we won't fast. But there will come a day when Jesus' own disciples will also fast. But then he offers this analogy. He said, no one puts unshrunk cloth on an old garment. So if you have an old garment and it's tearing, you wouldn't put unshrunk cloth over it because it would just pull away if any strain came. And the same thing, he said, you don't put new wine into an old wineskin either because the new wine will just cause the old wineskin to burst. Instead, people put new wine into new wineskins. Now, what did he mean by that? Well, what Jesus was saying was, look, we have a tendency to look at what other people are doing. And so these disciples came and said, well, here's what the disciples of John are doing, Jesus. And here's what the Pharisees are doing, Jesus. And I'm sure there were other religious sects as well at the time. There was the Sadducees. What were they doing? And there were non-religious people that were doing things. Remember, this is a small piece of territory here in the Middle East. I mean, you have a big old wide world out there of people running to and fro and doing whatever they wanted to do. So Jesus was saying, look, this is new wine. This is a new commandment. This is a new way. And I want you to be open to that this year, my friend, that Jesus has new wine for you. Jesus has something new for you, that you don't have to be tied into your old way of thinking, your old way of doing things, your old way of anything. And so I want to leave you with that today. And I want you to let that just kind of percolate in your spirit and percolate in your mind, that Jesus wants to do a new thing this year. He's not doing the same old thing. There's new wine for you. in your relationships, in your spiritual growth, actually, in your relationship with the Lord, in your family, in your business or your finance, or in your life in general. There's new wine. And so, my friends, I just want to leave you with that point today. I hope that's a blessing to you. And I will drop the links in a day or two to the YouTube channel where my extra milers can get the longer study. All right. God bless you.